My name is Brandon Mitchell, the creator and author of Giju's Gift, and you're listening to True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Brandon Mitchell about his seminar about making graphic novels. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. If you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/True North Country Comics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Based in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Brandon is the founder of Birch Bark Comics and creator of the Sacred Circles comic series, which draws on his Mi'kmaq heritage. He has written 5 books with the Healthy Aboriginal Network, Lost Innocence, Drawing Hope, River Run, Making It Right, and Emily's Choice. Brandon has written and illustrated Jean-Paul's daring adventure Stories from Old Mobile for the University of Alabama, as well as 2 Mi'kmaq language-based stories for the Litsaguri Education Dictorate. He has also completed an art installation for Heritage and Culture New Brunswick. His most recent project is Giju's Gift, illustrated by Veronica Baranova. During our chat, Brandon talked about his recent workshop given at the Arts Wood Council Centre at Wood Buffalo Region in Fort McMurray, Alberta, for those who want to explore and work with graphic novel design. Brandon led the workshop from concept to completion, based on his experience with graphic novel creation. And now, without further ado, here's my chat with Brandon Mitchell about his seminar about making graphic novels. So, Brandon Mitchell, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me back. It's been great. Thanks.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time. Before we get started with all the questions, I want to ask you at the outset, what's on your bedside reading table? What are you reading today?
Well, I'm actually near the end of my Dune reading. I'm currently at, I think the last time we chatted, I think I was reading Emperor, or no, not God Emperor. I was reading, I got into the Dune series, and now I'm finally on Heretics of Dune.
Wow. I've lost track of how many books there are, but there's a lot.
Yeah, I didn't know there was that many books in this series. My wife got me the 6 books for Christmas last year. I told myself I was going to try and get through all 6 of them before this Christmas, and I haven't done it yet.
Oh my! Well, it's an endeavor. I'm sure it's worthwhile. That's for sure. So we're here talking about a recent presentation you gave about graphic novel creation. So I'd like to chat with you a little bit more about that. And right off the bat, just want to ask, this wasn't a local event held in New Brunswick. Where did you go for this presentation?
No, it wasn't a local event. So I was invited by the Art Council of Wood Buffalo out in Fort McMurray to be one of their workshop facilitators. And then I was also asked to be part of an writer's panel, an author's panel. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Did they know of your work? Was it something that you had reached out to them? How did that invite happen?
So this invite happened. So Fred is a good friend of mine, and we actually met back in 2019. Just through a mutual friend. He was in the area. We just started talking and we're just shooting the breeze. Not long after that, once he found out more what I do, he approached me about being part of a conference or being part of a writers gathering. So this was back in just before COVID. He was giving me some dates and everything was kind of in the bag, and he was like, would you be interested in coming down? I said, I would love to come down. This is a great opportunity. And then we all know what happened, right? Everything was all lined up. We had dates. And then when COVID happened, they didn't cancel it at first. They were kind of a wait and see, right? As time went on, it was just one of those things where, hey, we're gonna see what happens in the fall. And then they kept on getting pushed. And then I got an email, I think in 2020, early 2021, and they're like, they're just gonna postpone it indefinitely. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, no worries, totally understand. And what happened was I got an email from them in September, and I had completely forgot. It was just something that just fell off my radar, right? And they were just like, okay, we've got the dates now, and we're ready to go. And I was just like, what is this again?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and then it kind of expanded too, right? So in that time, I had another book that came out, Kaju's Gift, and this place, it blew up during that time as well. And they were changing the format of the gathering, and and then they asked me if I'd be interested in doing a demonstration, and I was like, yeah, actually I can. And that grew from one demonstration to visiting a middle school, and then visiting a community of Fort McKay.
That's pretty cool. Glad it
Yeah.
worked out. So, without getting too much, into the weeds about the talk, what were some of the highlights that you gave about graphic novel creation?
So we focus mostly on character, like building a character. What makes your character unique? What makes a character stand out? An example I try to use is, you can tell a story, like there's always a story about a boy and his dog, right? Like that. You can start simple with that. But what makes that boy or what makes that dog special? What's the thing that separates it from other stories like that? That's kind of like where I lead off to, or just to start to get them thinking. And then another thing, without giving away too much of what I do, is we do something simple. Like it's just stuff that I remember doing in high school or middle school, and that was kind of reinforced in college. So a lot of the things that I bring to these seminars is a little mixture of what worked for me in school, like in grade school, and then what worked for me in college. And one of them is not so much a mind map, but in college, we were given a character's name. Like we were in a class of like 20 people. We were given one character's name. And from there, we had to develop that character. So you had a room of 20 people. The character might have the same name, but it'd be 25 or 20 different versions of that character. That's what I brought to these workshops. I changed the format a little bit, and I created 2 character names, because back in college, it was just it was a male character's name or like a unisex name, and I wanted to try and bring some more diversity to it. So I created 2 character names that would allow the participants to explore what the character could be.
Ah, that's interesting. Because typically most people start off, like with me, it would be like, what if? Like I'd be walking around going like, what if? And that sort of starts the story. But as you say quite rightly, without a character, nobody cares, right? It's just like, yeah, so what? Right? You need to have some sort of heart or some sort of emotional connection to the characters, that whatever their what if scenario. Otherwise, it's just who cares, right?
Right. Yeah. And there's no wrong way of starting a story, right? But this is how that's my process. I try to create the character first, and then I'll put them in a situation, right? And I know some people like to create the scenario or the plot first, and then they'll create a character or characters that move the story along. But yeah, that was just my process, and that's what I told them too. I said, this is just my process. Like if you have your own method, by all means, use that method. Whatever works for you. I'm just sharing what works for me.
Right. How would you describe the audience? Would they be full-time artists? Would they be just newbies, so to speak, coming into this and want to get involved in creating a graphic novel? How would you describe them?
It was a diverse range. Like I said, I was invited to do a 6-hour workshop at a middle school / like a combined middle school, high school. There was a lot of diverse students there. It was actually kind of funny. One of the students there recently moved from Fredericton to Fort McMurray, so it was really funny because we were both looking at each other like, for real. But it was really great because it just like I was astounded by the amount of talent that were in these workshops. We had a young group, like so ranges from like 14 to 18, mostly in that school setting. And then when I went to Fort McKay, it was more like 14 to 25. And even when I was in Fort McKay, like once again, I'm just blown away by the amount of talent that I saw. Like I was even teasing them. I was like, I don't know why I'm here, guys. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
Well, I mean, you're a professional. You've done it. You've got published books and this sort of thing. And I guess they're looking, to get their start, I suppose. Everyone came to this event, I guess, with the anticipation, expectation of making something, I presume, right? They're all into the arts in general.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. And like I said, I was just teasing because, like I said, it was just great to see so much creativity, and I wanted to do what I could to encourage them, support them, because I understand too, like the struggle, especially for young artists. Where do they start? How do they start? Things have changed so much since I got into the game, but the one thing that doesn't change is taking a chance on yourself, right? And that's what I try to encourage anyone that participates in whatever I'm doing, just to take a chance on yourself and just kind of go for it.
Sure. Do you remember, were there any questions that really stood out to you from the audience when you're giving your workshop?
just general curiosity. Like when did I get started? How did I get started? Like what inspired me to start create? I think that was the reoccurring question that came up a lot in these workshops. What inspired me to create? That's not just at this workshop, but in a lot of the workshops that I've attended, they've always wanted to know, like, what was that spark, right? And yeah, I just tell them, like, it's multifaceted, right? Like, I loved drawing when I was younger. I was self-taught, and I was really super. I don't not to be hard on myself, but without any real direction, I took it as far as I could go with my own self-interest. And then I had a really great support network too. Like I had a lot of friends that encouraged, like that liked what I was doing at each stage of my creative journey, right? And what I think the turning point was grade 10, grade 11. No, grade 11 was kind of the turning point for me in terms of the opportunities that came my way in school programming. And then I had a really great teacher that really encouraged my creative side in writing. And that's what really gave me the inspiration to keep writing.
Absolutely. Putting yourself in the shoes of your audience. I think that's, if I had that when I was growing up, I'd have a mentor or someone professional come in and talk to me about how to do this specific creative opportunity. I think that would be tremendous.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm super grateful for all these opportunities, right? And I always try to put myself in that situation, like trying to give them something, and I tell them that too. I try to give them something that I didn't have, so and then hopefully they roll with it.
Yeah, you never know who you might be inspiring a new generation of creators. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be cool. Now, just to sort of be devil's advocate here, I've been told by some creators that anyone starting their own story should focus on something small at the outset, like a comic book or maybe an anthology. But your focus was on graphic novel creation. Did you give any advice on that to these young folks, like start small, or did you say, hey, you've got a big story, here's how you tell a big story?
I told them to focus on story, and it didn't matter how big it was. So going back to when I did Sacred Circles, I did that. Oh, that was the other thing too, because they were just like, how did you get into this? And not a lot of people talk about self-publishing or like, the benefits of self-publishing. It's about sharing your journey, right? And I was always inspired to think big, write big, and worry about, the details later on, or worry about, everything else later on. And when I did Sacred Circles, I had big ambitions for this story, or big dreams for this story, and I didn't hold myself back because I was doing it for myself. And I think that was the message that I was trying to convey to the youth as well, or to the participants as well. It doesn't matter the size of your story; it's what kind of story do you have in you that you want to tell. And I think that's the important thing. Worry about the platform later on. Like, tell your story first, and then get it out there afterwards.
Sure, makes sense. Now, based on your experience here, do you think you might give this type of workshop again in the future?
So here's the secret. I've been doing this version of this workshop for many years. I've modified it for my audience. I've been able to refine this workshop over the last 8 years, and I thank all of the opportunities I've received in my area. Right, like I was asked back in 2015 to do a workshop at the middle school here. But it was kind of funny because the person that brought me in, she was really upset that she didn't know that I could do these workshops sooner.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, how come you didn't tell me this sooner? And I was like, no. You never asked, or no, I'm not one to.
Yeah.
But when I did that first workshop, like I did it with 4 students, everybody was amazed. And then I kept on getting invited back to do similar workshops, which eventually led to a job there at the school. And I worked there for 2.5 years, and it was great because everything was kind of like a stepping stone in terms of like refining the workshop or refining the message, right? And then understanding your audience. So I have workshops for grade 6 level all the way to grade 12. And wow. I've modified it as well to include like grade 4, grade 5. So I've been able to modify this workshop for various age groups.
Nice. That's very cool. Very cool. Well, it's something definitely that we should keep an eye open for whenever you give your next presentation. I'm sure that'd be very exciting. We've talked about your presentation, but your main work that you're doing now. Can you talk about what your next project is that you have on your table there?
Yeah, so my next project is volume 2 of The Adventures of the Boogaloo Mooch. I'm happy to announce that the final edit has been submitted. And we are going into production with the illustrator. Veronica is going to get started in January. I'm super excited about that. And the next thing I'm working on is potentially adapting the story on Donald Marshall Jr.
So lots of activity on the go, that's for sure.
Never a dull moment.
That's it. Where do you recommend people go online to find out more about your current and your future work and future presentations too?
So I'm mostly on Instagram, so you can find me, find out where I'm at and what I'm doing at writer Brandon Mitchell on Instagram, and you can visit my website birchbarkcomics.com. Those are the two main avenues to figure out where I am and what I'm doing.
Thanks to Brandon for the chat. You can discover more about Brandon on Instagram at writer Brandon Mitchell and online at birchbarkcomics.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Tumblr at True North Country Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel and hit the notification button. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. If you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/TrueNorthCountryComics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2023.